Wilson, co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, wrote in 1952, "If we examine every disturbance we have, great or small, we will find at the root some unhealthy dependence and its consequent demand." Wilson suggested that if we could identify and continually surrender these unrealistic and unrealizable demands, that we may then be able to accomplish what he imagined to be the recovery's next frontier, something he called emotional sobriety. Flash forward 70 years and join psychotherapists and best-selling authors Tom Rutledge and Dr. Allen Berger, who have taken up the mantle of exploring Bill Wilson's new frontier. Welcome to Emotional Sobriety.
Welcome to Emotional Sobriety, the podcast. Here we are, all in the same building
For the first time.
It's like this is Tom Rutledge. This is I'm sitting with Patrick Newman, our producer, and in the other house next door, and looking at him on the screen is our fearless leader, Dr. Allen Berger. How are you, Allen?
I'm great, Tom. What a day we've had today, huh?
Awesome. It's like I'm exhausted. We just finished doing a workshop, first workshop we've done together in person in about, 60 years, something like that. It's something like that. And it was phenomenal. It couldn't have been a better group, and I couldn't have had more fun. And this being the first time that I've actually been hanging out personally with Patrick at all. So it's been a wonderful day.
It has been an incredible day today. It really has. And, the workshop theme was emotional sobriety, right? We're
finding inner peace. That was your part where you're talking about the freedom and the peace. It's being the ultimate goal of what we're doing. That's what we were working towards today.
And, in the way we approached it, which I think would be worth spending some time today on, is talking about what we talked about today and just kind of following up on what made us, first of all, choose this topic and approach it the way we did. And what's the relevance to, this issue? Because today we talked a lot about what happens when our self is fragmented, right? And especially when those fragmentations aren't working together in a harmonious way. Like there is no inner peace possible when we're in conflict with ourselves.
Right. Well, and that begins with, and this is where we started really, which was not understanding that, what begins as fragmented is what we basically just through reframing becomes our own natural multiplicity. That we stop seeing, and you make such a great point of this on a regular basis, and you certainly did today, which is quit making everything about pathology. That our multiplicity is the nature of our consciousness. And as we get started with this, one thing that I was talking to Patrick about was because he has some interesting observations from being, sort of on a witness on the sidelines of the whole thing, and had some questions that, I said, well, you should just, ask us some questions on the podcast in terms of what you were observing with us and how we were doing that. So I think it'd be great to kind of do a review on the day.
Yeah, let's do it, Patrick. I'd love to hear.
Yeah, well, first off, it was just wonderful being in person with you guys after such a long period of virtual. Not to knock virtual. I mean, it's, I think that I was anticipating it to be a lot weirder than it turned out to be when the pandemic started. And, I met Tom through this process. I met a lot of the people that I was able to hug today through this virtual process. And so I really embraced the tools. But man, I mean, it'll be a surprise to no one to say that just being able to share the same space with all these folks was a game changer.
Yeah.
And
people that have been 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional today.
Yeah. And not to get away from the recap, but I was just from helping load the car and from being involved with some of the administrating of the event today, and just watching you guys on top of your game, both in treatment or in process with people, and also just in terms of getting the whole thing plane in the air. Did you notice principles of emotional sobriety, or, you know, finding an emotional center of gravity when you have like 1,000 moving pieces to deal with at the same time?
Oh, like ourselves personally, when we're doing, or are we practicing what we teach while we're doing it?
Well, I mean, I that's not even a question. You guys are practicing it, but I just wondered, did anything come up for you in terms of like, were there stress points where emotional sobriety really came through for you?
I think it's probably true for you too, Alan, but I'll let you speak for yourself. But it's like I'm going, I think, yeah, always. I mean, it's like, you know, the anxiety is, you know, I'm, you know, I don't get anxious the way I used to get anxious about workshops, but you know, I'm still scared of people. I'm still scared of people I haven't met yet. It's like, I'm just, there's still that little kid inside of me that does that. So I get nervous till we get started. And, so yeah, I mean, you were with me. It's like, you know, I had a, you know, small meltdown in the car on the way, because I wanted something to eat, and it became complicated, and I was like, you know, fuck this, I don't want it to be complicated.
I think we're gonna call it hereafter. We'll call it Egg McMuffin Gate.
That's right. Because so you went, you know, and basically, I hope, you know, you can tell me how I did, but it's like I basically just tried to contain that at that point and just realized I just need to let go this go and move on. And I told you, and then later I was able to tell you a little bit of my family history so it was a little bit of piece of therapy work for me, because this brought up some stuff for me. So yeah, that was an example of just, you know, just the stress was heightened, and so I was a little bit more on the edge, you know.
Yeah, well, there was no point where all of us weren't there to catch each other, you know, if you needed some support.
Well, one of my favorite parts is to watch Alan, because first of all, Alan is, I was just talking to him about it a minute ago. It's like, you know, he's the roadie, he's the tech guy, he's every, I mean, he is constantly moving. You're like a little pinball, you know, in the workshop space when we come in there. And it's like, and there's, you know, there's some things that I can help with, but it's like not when it comes to the technology. So I'm just staying out of your damn way. It's if I understood the technology, I would be focusing my attention on how I could avoid helping. But in this case, I'm not trying to get away with anything. I just was trying to, but because you are working on at least 6 things at one time, as far as I can tell, Alan. I don't think that's an exaggeration. You're like a juggler.
That's true. It's true. It's like there's a lot of moving pieces. You know what you were talking about, Patrick. It's weird wearing all those different hats. You know, it's like wearing the hat of the organizer, wearing the hat of the presenter, you know, also partially wearing the hat of the host, welcoming people into the space. You know, it takes the team. I couldn't have done all that. Thank God for Brad Langenberg over at Harmony Hollow and his staff. And
those guys are great. I loved every one of them that I met and spent any time at all, but they just helped us get that off without a hitch.
You know, and also Patrick will be posting some pictures. The space was just incredible that we were at.
It's beautiful.
I mean, I just love that room. There's a great energy in that room. But, you know, where I don't get so bothered by that. What happened to me today was I was hoping some of the wireless equipment I had would be working better, right? Especially like the other lavalier for you, Tom.
Yeah.
So when I realized, first of all, that on the one wireless mic I had the wrong cable to hook it up to the system. And then I realized the other ones aren't going to work. Now I'm going, okay, so here's the situation. Life is what it is. You know, I can be upset that I didn't check all this stuff earlier and do a dry run on it. I don't have time to really do that. But what I said is, you know what I'm going to do is, while Tom's presenting, I wanted to see if it was starting off in a great way, just in case you needed my support. When I saw that I was going to be, you know, unnecessary, I hopped in the car, went home and picked up the other stuff so we could mic the clients for the demonstration. Because I knew in the afternoon, if we didn't have them mic'd, it would lose the group, because it's a pretty big room.
Yeah, you talked to me about that during some of my work.
It's a hot day and stuff like that. So I thought, man, we got to do it. And I'm so glad that I followed that, right? Because I think the quality of the day was really good. Even though you and I can speak loud,
Yeah.
It was different having
No,
you.
you're absolutely right about that. It's like, because when I was saying we could handle it, we could project our voices fine, but when if one of us is mic'd and the other one isn't, the quality difference is automatically noticeable. But that, I didn't know you left. It's like I didn't know you were.
I ran back home to.
I looked for you a couple of times because I was thinking you would comment on some stuff, but it's like you were.
No,
I noticed you weren't there, but I was just in my
table.
flow, so I just kept going. But I didn't know you had gone home to take a nap.
Yep.
Great nap. It's a very Clark Kent kind of transformation.
The cables kind of crawled out of the basement.
What's the Clark Kent reference?
Oh, well, just the way that, Clark Kent changes into Superman. Nobody ever seems to notice that he just went missing.
Yeah, he just where was
Alan when Superman jumped in my Clark Kent outfit and then got home.
Well, you said something to me this weekend, Alan, about how your life is fairly seamless. And I think what you meant by that is that you try to not wear different hats when you're in different relationship context, professional, personal. It's like you're always Alan. And I think that kind of dovetails a bit with the theme of the show today, because you're coming, when you begin and you're a child, right, you're singular, and then you become fragmented when you come in contact with people and culture and all these things. And then there's a process. And I think that's what emotional sobriety ties into, right? Where you kind of reconstitute those pieces into a self. You can just bring your authentic self to in every situation you come across and not feel too daunted.
Well, look, what you're saying is you sense a certain level of authenticity in me. You've seen me now like you've never seen me before. You've seen me before as Dr. Berger, and you see me as the co-podcaster with Tom. That's been in our life, right? So you've seen me professionally. Now you got to see me personally. And what you're saying is, God, you recognize the Alan Berger that I am when I present professionally, that when I'm on the podcast with you guys, and I am when I'm driving you over to the AA meeting we went to on Saturday morning. Great meeting.
Yeah.
And when we're riding the refrigerator and getting some of your daughter's ice cream.
That's right.
That's right.
Thank God, just got her some, what are those, cookie ice cream sandwiches or something like that? She didn't miss all the mini drumsticks you got.
I know. Yeah. Well, she brought her, Cece brought her wonderful looking ice cream sandwich over and showed it to Patrick and I, and we thought that she was offering us an ice cream sandwich, and Patrick actually reached toward it and she just snatched it back.
And then
I just said, Patrick, you took the bait, man. It's like, so it's been, and while we're on that subject, I'll just thank you and your daughters and your wonderful wife, Jess, and my love for being such incredible host for us this weekend. It's so cool to be a part of your family.
Well, you are a part of our family, and I feel that very strongly, and I'm glad you felt welcome. And I told that to Patrick. I'm really glad that he felt welcomed in the family. And, Rocky, our dog, is falling in love with Patrick.
I know.
Man, I love that dog.
Yeah.
He's like Patrick and Rocky are one forever.
That's right.
Really connected. But Patrick, your point about this is, see, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Is that we go from being or starting out being just who we are, right? As infants, we lose that. And I think that while we're never going to be completely whole like we were as an infant, that as we recover ourselves, and I've often talked about this, Tom, you'll recognize it when I say it, that I think recovery is recovering our true self, our authentic self. Yeah. And that's what starts to happen. Now, if you think about it like the Humpty Dumpty analogy, well, we kind of super glue ourselves back together. That's the integration, right? But we're still going to have the marks from where we've been broken.
Yeah.
See, the remnants of that fragmentation, and you talk about this as a lot, even though we might be integrated, doesn't mean my alcoholic self is gone.
Right.
It's not like it's gone. It's not like Elvis has left the building.
Right.
It's still a part of me. But it's a part of me that is not dominating my
well,
life.
it's that the whole thing of being, we're not in control, but we're in charge. And the idea there is in what you're just talking about. And I think this is one of the things that I think we did a pretty good job. We'll ask Patrick if we did of getting it across, which is the idea that integration is not unification for in our work. Or integration is about organization. And, the term we've come up with or read recently, what we like so much, is self-governing. It's like, basically having that authentic part of us that's in charge of the others, which includes being able to delegate my tequila boy, alcoholism over to the corner, as the example I gave today in the workshop, where I can, it's like, I always want, I don't ever want him to be where I can't see him, because he can sneak up on me. I tell people I don't want to live in paranoid fear, but I want to have appropriate caution. I don't think that, I've known people who've been sober as long as I have, who've gone back out and created problems. And I know that I can get in problems without even picking up a drink. So it's like, I want to be aware of any of those toxic, characters in my intrapersonal metaphor system that are like what we talked about, which really are metaphors, not part of our authentic self, but metaphors for our programming. It's like alcoholism is not something that is a part of who I am. It's something that I have, and I'm responsible for being in recovery from it. It's just the same as if somebody has diabetes and they're recovering from that, and they have to be responsible for themselves.
Well, listen, I want everybody to hear that. I want you to say it again, because this is such an important point. Alcoholism is not who you are. I love how you say it again.
Okay, it's not. No, it's not. It's not. It's because what we were teaching today is the idea that what you do with the differentiation is you differentiate. I differentiate myself from my alcoholism or whatever disease. That could be eating disorder. It can be self hatred or perfectionism. But I'll just use alcoholism for simplicity. I differentiate myself, which basically we define today as differentiating. It means being able to tell the difference. That's it. It's like, don't make it more complicated than that. It's just being able to tell the difference between me and my alcoholism. I am not my alcoholism. The problem was I was in my drinking days, I was over identified with the alcoholism. So there was not a separation between me. With the separation, the problem definition changes, so that the problem definition is not that I have alcoholism. The problem definition is that I had a tendency to listen to and agree and obey the messages from my alcoholism, which led me to drinking and making really bad choices. It's like, so as long, what we really do teach people to do is to address these intrapersonal codependent relationships and get, basically learn how to have those boundaries internally, so that my alcoholism, because I see you, I hear you, and I disagree with you. I'm not going to do what you say.
Yeah. One thing that jumped out at me you said today, Tom, was something to the effect of the addict self has read all the self-help books you've read. Oh, yeah. They've studied your psychology deeply. So
they go to every session with you. They come to all the workshops. Yeah, and I like to tell my clients that, and I told the group this today. So beware that, especially when we're talking about the should monster mentality in particular, that part that always tells us we're doing something wrong, is to keep in mind that if you're even listening to this podcast, and it's like you're going that's a part that's going to come in there and try to sell you on the idea that there's you're doing this wrong. What I'll tell people is like it's strange. It's a weird irony, but it's like your should monster will start telling you that you're doing a bad job of recovering from your should monster. It's like it'll tell you you're not doing it right, and it's like we have to be very careful because we're so used to this listening to those automatic voices, those critical voices, and what we want people to do is to be able to keep separating from how do we say? It's like separating from the condemning messages. We're not talking about not critiquing ourselves. I think criticism itself gets a bad reputation in this, because we need to, my best self, my inner wisdom, my strong recovery voice can critique me It was, just a little example, but it could talk to me this morning when I'm having a potential meltdown about an Egg McMuffin, and it can say, "Hey, Rutledge, just cool it, man. It's like, just chill out. You don't need to do this." And it's like, and, so I'm having a little talk from him. He's not sitting there saying, "Oh, you're a sweet little guy. I love you so much." He's saying this, you need to, keep it in line here, buddy. You're making trouble for other people here. So it's like, that's recovery. That's me critiquing myself, but in a way that can correct my course.
Well, and I just want to clarify, maybe for dramatic purposes, we can call that a meltdown, but you were lovely.
It wasn't a meltdown.
But it would have, I understand the need to have just a little munchy munch on the way to the thing. And, we all came together and worked it out.
Well, that's good. Well, and we're taking advantage of the whole thing was we're doing this. One of the things I would say is a teachable moment is something that I wouldn't have been able to do in the past that it's easy for me to do today is when you give me that feedback, I take that in. I say, that's first of all, when you say it, I go, "You're right. I didn't, so, I'm more aware of my potential for meltdown from the inside. We're all going to be able to do that. But a lot of times what we end up doing, which is always an ironic thing for people who have low self-esteem, is that somebody can give us some feedback that's actually accurate and positive, and we will reject it. Mm-hmm. I was horrible. It's like, but the truth is I wasn't. And, and you're pointing that out to me, and I need to be able to put that. So basically what I'm learning to do is be more energy efficient. That's part of what emotional sobriety is that we haven't talked a lot about, but it's energy efficiency so that I'm not going to waste a bunch of time circling around, something that doesn't need to be considered anymore. I did that. I made my decisions about that. I handled that. Got some feedback from you here spontaneously. It's like, okay, turns out I was lovely.
Well, my thing today was I was struggling to take photos, and I took some photos that were bad. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, I had anxiety about venturing forth into the crowd to take some of the photos that we really needed, just because I was worried about offending some of the participants.
You didn't want to invade anybody's space,
right? But I think that this was an instance where there was a voice, because I've long struggled to. With cameras, and I love photography. Mm-hmm. I've just never been the most adept at pulling it off myself. Mm-hmm. And so I think that I have a lot of kind of like, it's a high pressure situation where a lot of the pressure is self-generated. So And so, Allen at one point took some shots and gave me some pointers, and I was immediately kind of clammed up. I was defensive. Mm-hmm. I was, not the most, receptive to the, to the advice that he was giving me. But after just like a couple minutes of, going over it in my head and kind of like thinking about like, well, if I could play this over again, how would I play it? I think, there's just in my multiplicity, there are certain voices that I was giving center stage that maybe I didn't need to be. And that, I was in an environment, a safe environment where I can try things that I'm typically anxious about. And I've got the support there that if I fuck up royally, I'm not going to get raked over coals about it.
Right. Right. You can take some risk. You can do that. It's like, and you can even when it doesn't, when you feel insecure, you can still let your guard down.
Yeah. And I think that was where my emotional sobriety was tested. And I feel like I maybe learned a little bit about how I might do this differently in the future today.
Mm-hmm. And not only did you learn something about it, you changed after that. You went in the crowd and started taking some pictures.
Yeah, and they were a little bit better, I think.
They were a lot better. They were a lot better.
So thanks for that, Allen. Yeah.
No, and I appreciated that you being available for me to give you the feedback and point it out, in terms of, look, what you did was okay, right? But it was staying in relationship together, and you saw what I wanted right after I took a few of those. Mm-hmm. And then I tried to let you know, and I hope you felt it, that there was no judgment on my part. I wasn't upset that you did what you did. I understood it completely. And I know you struggle with that, what you just talked about. And I so appreciate you pushed yourself past your comfort zone. Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks, Alan. And man, like you're right. You were not critical of me. It's just my inner voice that's a bastard that just really drives me hard.
I saw it in your eyes immediately. Remember when I said, look, you're getting defensive like you did something wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. We're just talking about what I'd like and how you can do it different.
Yeah.
And then you joined up, which was great, Patrick. I appreciated your willingness to do that. But look, isn't this great that there's all these opportunities? Because I was sitting there, the two voices in my head. Do you go get the cables or you're not? You got to drive for a half an hour. You're going to be tired when you get back. You got to do demonstrations this afternoon. Is it worth going back, or do we just, and so I'm going back and forth. Finally, hopefully the wise mind in me said, wait a minute, this is about quality. And if yes, you might be able to rest a little bit and you might be okay, but then we're going to lose the group because that room just dissipates the sound.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody's being quiet up in that front, they're not going to hear them.
Mm-hmm.
So it worked out.
We're messing
we all
with
had our little struggles. It's so interesting. It's so
What's
cool.
that?
We all had our little moments.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, it's interesting too because we were.
Wait a minute, but I got left out of this Egg McMuffin this morning. Now, how come nobody was telling me about the possibility of a fucking Egg McMuffin?
There wasn't no possibility of an Egg McMuffin. That was the fucking.
What happened to the McDonald's that we passed?
I know. Now I'm having a meltdown. It's like,
God damn it! You guys could have said, "Hey, we're gonna stop," because we
I'm glad
I would that fucking traffic.
I wish we would have been together because we would have together had a meltdown.
We would have gotten that damn Egg McMuffin.
And we would have ended up with some Egg McMuffins. It's like, oh my God, I'll tell you about it later. It's like we Tom Potash was calling somebody up to get us some, and it's like, and I was just thinking, okay, well, that'd be nice. They go bring me an Egg McMuffin, but it's like, no, what do they do? It's like then they call back from some fancy smancy restaurant with this ridiculous menu of different egg sandwiches, and I'm just, this is where I'm calling it a meltdown because inside I'm just wanting to go fuck off, everybody.
It's the same place that you get javelin missiles. I think that's where we were getting these.
It was like I was talking about McDonald's, but let me go back to a second because I kind of like the behind the scenes conversation we're having here with this is because you guys talked about I didn't know about the exchange with the camera, but I did get a chance to witness something that I see now. What it makes even more sense, and I thought was a really kind of cool moment between the two of you when we were getting afterwards, because one of the things that Patrick is one of the things you're good at, Patrick, is you're good at being the assertive producer for us. That basically the reason we're doing this podcast tonight, even after this thing, is because you've said, you've been very respectful. And if either one of us had said we didn't want to do it, we wouldn't have done it. But it's like you were saying, I really think it'd be a good idea for us to do this. And one of the things, you knew that we were going to be tired at the end of the day, but you saw the setting out there and you wanted to do some photographs, some promo photographs of us. And so you asserted yourself like that. And while we were doing that, first of all, I had a lot of fun doing that with you guys, and
so much fun.
But I watched at one point when you were doing pictures of me. I saw Alan, you and Patrick were talking and you were showing him something about closeness or whatever. I mean, we already determined that the person who takes the worst photographs is me, because I think I took a picture of the side of the building instead of you at one point. So
you caught an angle of my face.
Half of my head.
I have no, and see, this is the thing where I tell
most of the building and half of my head.
You weren't tall enough for that shot.
The building did not need to be in the frame. Why is the building more important than me?
I think we need to, I'm asking Patrick to be sure I get a copy of that photograph, because I think we need to use it for future promotional things. Just the top of your head.
Just the top of my head. And you guys were taller than me, and neither of you bent down to fucking make me look like
I was still.
Patrick, did you notice I was on my tippy toes near the end?
No, I didn't. And you know what?
I was trying to gain some height. Now I got cramps in both of my calves.
Oh my God. It's like, but here's the thing. What I saw you do is, and I don't know who initiated it, but I saw you guys talking about it, and you showing Patrick something by example, by taking a picture I think it was of me, and then showing him, and then he took a picture of the two of us and showed you, and you said, yeah, that's it. And you were saying, yes, I see the difference of that.
Yep.
But it was this, it was because you guys had this other time earlier. It's like what I saw there was I just remember having this moment where it just looked like a really beautiful moment where you guys were just collaborating about something. And I didn't know the difference. I don't know the difference in how close you're standing when you're doing a photograph, but it's like, it was obvious that you guys were on the same page with it. It looked nice.
It reminded me of another thing you said in the workshop today, Tom, that you don't really believe in theories as much as practices.
Yeah. The concepts aren't going to really do anything by themselves at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Like all that stuff, I had to interact with you guys, and we had to be doing something in order to get to that place. And man, it's been a lot of thinking and not as much doing during the desolate pandemic months.
No, and see, Alan, you talk about that stuff a lot. You talk about, like, people talk about relationships. I hear you say that where you're kind of going like you don't just sit around and think about being in a relationship. If you're interested in being in a relationship, then you go talk to people and you meet people and you practice stuff. It's like, I mean, it really is a lot of us who find our way into recovery, this is a generalization, but I'd say it's fair to say a lot of us, one of the many problems that we have is we tend to overthink things anyway. Yeah. And it's like, and so what we can do with, and this is kind of what I was speaking to in the workshop is you can read all these self-help books, you can go to all these workshops, you can follow the people that you want, you do this stuff, but you can spend a lot of time thinking about it. Yeah. It's like I have the little cartoon thing, the little dialogue I put up on my, I'm so proud I did some PowerPoint, which was, that just says the teacher says, the secret to living a full life is to live fully in the present moment. And the student says, that's brilliant. I really need to think about that. And the teacher says, no, you don't. It's like, you don't need to think about it. You need to do it, and it's like, and I like that. I didn't even think about that in terms of what we're doing today, but the idea that we were actually, when we talk about it, we realized we were all practicing our program today. I think we were. Yeah,
that's right.
And we're still speaking to each other tonight.
We're still speaking to each other.
We had dinner together. It's beautiful. Hamburger dinner with Alan and your family. Yeah. And it was, it was wonderful. It was a great day.
Really, 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 really.
Yeah. I love you both. And I'm glad we do this together. And I love the fact that we have now crossed that line where we are, first of all, Alan, that you and I are back and doing, and I think working together, as far as my assessment of today goes, we haven't sat and talked about it yet too much in detail, but I'd say we haven't missed a beat since the last time we did it. I think we know each other well enough to where we just do what we're going to do.
Well, the other thing that I thought was great in terms of our coordination with each other, you were working with a fellow that I know and briefly worked with. And there was a moment where I saw that I could take him in another direction. I came in to try to do that. You said, no, Alan, wait, I want to finish the direction I'm going. Yeah. It turned out that where you were taking him was such an important place for his self-forgiveness and his self-support and his self-compassion, right? Yeah. I mean, you saw what it evoked in him when you had him recognize that this one part of him was so much more forgiving than he ever realized. I mean, and that the other part of him was really trying to protect him more than he ever realized. Yeah. There were two things going on. And by the way, that could have been something that we emphasized a little bit more today, because I realized it also happened with the person that I was working with. I pointed out to her that she was doing a better job than she was realizing.
Yes. We always say that. We say we're so often showing people how they're not crazy.
Yeah. And that they are more than they think they are.
Absolutely.
The other piece here is that was so powerful. And it was just true. Everybody in that room today, what we did is when people did a piece of work, we asked for feedback. The level of feedback in terms of the personal share, everybody did a little kind of mini session with their feedback. It was really incredible, the depth of it today.
Right. I'd never seen a group that did as consistently well with, because we were very clear about the instructions about the feedback. The feedback is not feedback to the person who just worked, but feedback is what that evoked in me.
And that goes wrong in a lot of groups, and you've seen it, and I've seen it.
And sometimes it's hard to roll that back in.
And we've seen it a lot of times, and we wanted to make sure that the atmosphere was going to be trusting, because when everybody's talking about themselves, vulnerability begets more vulnerability, right?
Yep.
Is what we saw happening today, and it was really powerful. So
and that's one of the things I always just love about groups anyway, is that if it's always tell people, when I do a lot more group therapy, it's like the idea that group therapy is sometimes mistakenly thinking you're just sharing a therapist. It's like that's not what group therapy is. Group therapy is a whole different kind of therapy, a whole different animal to itself. And the truth is, if you are in a group process, whether it be group therapy or group therapeutic, like in this workshop, it's like if you're paying attention, you're working.
That's right.
Like you don't have to be the one in the middle of the room to do that. And that's what we saw happen when people wanted to share afterwards. They were talking about their process, what that brought up, even parts of their story that they were remembering and sharing with the group. So that's a good way to put it. They were sharing little mini structures that they did for themselves.
Yeah, it was cool, man. It really was cool. And I appreciate that in our relationship. Remember one of the things we talked about today, and we've said this at other times before, you can't trust somebody who can't say no.
Yeah.
You can't trust
yes. that moment when you came up and wanted, because it was very clear to me that I did not want to do what you had asked to do. And it's like, no, and this was not lost on me for a moment. And this is something you and I have a history of from early on that is one of the hallmarks of our relationship is that I didn't have a moment's question that this was perfectly okay to say to you, to say no. It's like I need to do this, and we, my intention was to say let me go wherever when you said where it was going, I don't think I ever when I'm working like that, I don't think I ever know exactly where it's going, but I know what direction I'm headed. And it's like, and I was come back around, and when it came back around, and we had done that so much more than I had seen also. And I said, did we came back to you. You graciously just said, I think we'll let that one stand. And I appreciate it.
Because
but it's like, you and I can disagree with. I learned that a long time ago with you, and that I did. It's like, and sometimes not so graciously, but it's like I disagree with you sometimes.
If I was running the session, you were in charge of the session, and I respected that.
Yeah.
And if you said no, I trust.
See, I think it's good. And this is maybe a little projection, but it's like my experience across the board through time working with other people, just in general. I think when people see us, or other people in our position do that kind of interaction with each other, I think that's good for people. I think that's a good thing to model, that we're not scared of each other, that we are. So you're talking about practicing. It's like, I think those kinds of things can have a benefit when people can see that just two people that they're coming to, they respect enough to try to learn from this stuff. And so one says, can I do this? And the other one says, no, I want to do this. And the other one just respects that. It's like, I think that by itself is therapeutic, right. And we have no way of knowing who that hits in the audience, but that does not go unnoticed.
No, people can have differences. We had our differences, and it did not, we did not get alienated from.
Well, they're differences. They're not disagreements.
That's right.
You defined it that way. It's like, and one of the things you said in process after that was, and I was aware of that. And maybe it's even a little bit, I don't know if it is or not, but they might even be a little bit more than it was the last time we ever did one of our points of intervention work. But it's like you pointed out, you said, Tom and I work in very different ways, and it's like, I love that. And because one of the points we had made earlier in the day was, there's not just one way.
No.
Find what works for you.
Yeah. There was a lot of cool stuff today. Did you see that, Patrick, when that interaction happened? How did you react to that?
I thought it was really cool because I thought it was cool both that like you had an idea and, you were, you had a spark, and then you were trying to see if you could add something to the stream that was going to make for a more powerful connection with that guy. But then I also thought it was really cool when you were fixed on, your destination, and you were able to speak up for yourself. And it was a very kind of like, Magneto and Professor X, tete-a-tete that you guys had. And I thought, it worked out because the guy like was so, he was ready to really expose, some very, very intense emotions to all of us. Yeah. And I think, at the end of it, I think Allen even said like, to the group, man, I'm glad that, you stuck that landing because I think that was an important moment for him to experience. And so it was cool. I think that was one of the highlights of the day, actually.
Okay. Did it make you nervous at all when we weren't?
No, because there wasn't any any toxic heat in it. It was just
there wasn't for me.
You guys were just working.
Yeah. That's it. And see, I need to say that too, rather than just I'm not the shining example of somebody who can do that with just everybody. By the way, it's like I can be a pretty touchy little guy, and I've heard from people through the years that I'm not the easiest person to work with, and it's because part of that is because I can get on a road and I don't want anybody to get in my way, and I kind of get blinders on, but it's
well, you know what? I guess in general, I'm a big fan of people who have opinions.
Yeah. Okay.
And just like argue them fiercely, or passion.
Yeah.
It's underrepresented, I think.
Well, I just I think what happens here. This is. I'm not trying to take. I want part of my challenge is to take credit for my own growth and knowing that I'm better at that than I used to. When I used to I didn't work and play well with others, but it's like that. I am better at that. But a lot of it really is, and I don't want to make it sound too mushy here, but it's like that. It's the work that you and I have done with each other since we've known each other, Allen, and it's like just in being colleagues and friends, and I love the fact that we trust. That I know you trust me, and I absolutely trust you that much, so that I really can be just completely honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice, isn't it?
Yeah, it is nice.
I didn't want to let tonight pass without saying that, man, it was so nice to hear from some of you, the listeners, in person today, because I look at the analytics and I'm always happy to see when they're going up, but I lose sight of the fact that people actually listen to these and they enjoy what we're doing. And you guys said some really like kind words about, the podcast and, how some of these themes have helped you through this last stretch of time. And anyway, we're just so grateful that you're listening, and we will strive to continue making great content that ties into this theme of emotional sobriety. And just maintaining that emotional center of gravity, no matter what shit gets thrown at you in life.
Well, and write to us, because I've said this before, and sometimes people will take this seriously. Sometimes I think people just let this spread off. We really like to, we like viewer mail kind of thing. It's like I like responding to things that people ask specifically. And that's one of the things you and I have talked about for a long time, Allen, that we love about the second half of what we do in our workshops is that it's not just it's doing the therapy part, but it's also just doing the back and forth and the responding to questions part. And people's, so if you have questions, if you have things you want us to talk about, you can write to any one of us, Patrick, me, or Allen, and just write to us and talk to us about what you'd like us to say on the podcast, talk about in the podcast, and we'll do it.
Yeah. I'll put the emails in the show notes once again this week. And
we love interacting. And this is, of course, this, like you say, that today was the day where you get to see people that we know of. It just, we know they're listeners, and maybe we never seen them before, and got to meet a lot of those folks. But we got to see people who are two-dimensional people on my screen on Thursday nights. It turns out they're all three-dimensional.
Yeah, and I know for sure now that you're not an algorithm.
That's right, I'm not. Because I think that has some relation to math, and I couldn't be anything related to math.
On the math part.
I'm stuck on the times tables.
No, not good on the math part.
No.
All right, guys. Well, great. We'll see you in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
If we get up early enough, we'll go get our Egg McMuffin.
Okay. Peace.
Tend your life, tend your myth. Cultivate your narrative with whomever you're with. Then with glass in hand and children on one knee, bring some stories, bring your stories back to me. It ain't a crime to be a human. Never be ashamed to be yourself. Rest assured that whatever you're doing will entertain me like nobody else. So here's to us, my old friends, until it's time to drink the wine and break the bread again. With glass in hand and children on one knee, bring some stories, bring your stories back to me.